What's going on, everybody? Welcome, welcome, welcome again. Welcome to tonight's session as it relates to living beyond the stigma of mental health. We're excited because we have the opportunity to raise some awareness and bring some education to the topic of mental health. If you all are not familiar, first of all, people across America, throughout the world, have the difficulty of expressing ourselves, expressing our emotions, and expressing the realities of how we're living. It's difficult to some for us to naturally do that, which then causes a strain on our expression, communication, and that can have detrimental issues that could have us angry, lashing out, acting out. So if you couple that with this specifically to the community, you can only imagine the trauma which we had to endure. And so I'm Thomas Warren. I'm so glad to see all of you online on the call tonight. I'm going to do introductions here in just a few moments, but just wanted to get on and give you the purpose for tonight, Life Beyond Stigma. This is open mic night, the Crew Young Adult Ministry. And so the purpose of tonight is to educate young adults in the community on the importance of maintaining positive mental health, where to go for help, and the long-term supports available in our community. This is something that has been pervasive within our community. So when I was thinking about this event, I wanted to get some of our mental health professionals together to talk about this. And I'm very amazed by what each of them have done and what they are continuing to do in their communities, because I really want this to be an outreach. I really want us to work together to help serve our community. And so our guest speaker, Dr. Sarah Mcmurtry, is in the building. I'm going to introduce her in just a few moments. She is in the building. Dr. Mcmurtry, it's good to see you. And so tonight, I want to open up the floor and start with some introductions, starting off with the home team. Crew is in the building. I see their faces on. And so if you kind of unmute yourself, it's so good to see y'all. I haven't seen y'all since last week. I know we've been chatting intimately on the phones, but if you're available and able to turn your video on and wave to our guests tonight, that'd be greatly appreciated. And so Crew, we'll start with the home team one by one. If you can introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and then we'll move around. So
Well, my name is Michael Jackson Jr. I'm a healthcare worker. I work in home health and hospice. So I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Glad to have you on again, brother. Good to have you on. Absolutely. Don't be shy, Crew. This is what we do.
Hello, everyone. This is Carlotta Simmons coming. And just to say hello, I'm talking low, but I'm here and I'm excited to hear what we have tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carlotta. Good to have you on as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Crystal. I am from the DFW area, and I'm really excited to hear tonight's topic, and I want to welcome everyone.
Awesome. Good evening, Crystal. Good to have you back. Hope you're doing well.
Hello, everyone. My name is San, and I cannot wait to talk about the stigmas behind mental health. I welcome everyone, and I'm just ready for tonight.
Yes, we are. So good to have you again as well, San. Thank you so much for joining. Anybody else? I see two names. If you're unable to speak, you can utilize the chat.
Hello, I'm Shabaya Harrelson. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. I can't go on video because I'm driving right now. But I'm excited to hear about the discussion and talk about mental health stigma, which is very well needed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Shabaya, that name sounds familiar. I think we've met before the last time you were on. So thank you so much for being a part of this. We're just so grateful. Anyone else like to introduce themselves? It's good to see Kiera and Jamal back with us as well, and our first time guests that are on. Hey, Kiera, I saw you up on me.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kiara. Good to see y'all this week. I'm excited to hear the message today.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Kiara, for tuning in again. It's good to see everybody doing well. Is there anyone else that would like to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Janelle Brooks. I'm a licensed psychologist in Atlanta, Georgia, and supporting Dr. Mack.
And Janelle.
Hi, Sarah. And I'm driving too.
Okay, all right. Thank y'all for tuning in. Be safe on that road, all you driving. Thank y'all for your support. And so, is there anyone else? If not, I'm going to move forward and introduce our guest speaker for the night.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Gibson. I'm a research coordinator in Atlanta. I work for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. I'm also supporting Dr. Mack. I'm glad to be here in this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for being a part of this as well, Ashley, and supporting Dr. Mack. And I really appreciate it. And so we're going to go ahead and move forward, and the other folks that would join will come on in. So it is with special excitement that I'm pleased to welcome a return guest, Dr. Sarah Mcmurtry, to Open Mic Night. Dr. Sarah Mack is a licensed psychologist in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Mcmurtry conferred a doctorate of philosophy in psychology at the University of Southern Mississippi. Dr. Mack has been an entrepreneur for 6 years. Currently, she is the owner and founder of Perspectives Psychological Resources LLC, in which she provides clinical assessments for children under age 5 with the developmental concerns and or features of autism spectrum disorder. So Dr. Mack is going to share her expertise in ways we can live a life beyond the stigma. And by giving us lots of practical ideas we can immediately put to work in our everyday lives. So crew, guests, please join me in welcoming Dr. Sarah Mcmurtry to the virtual Open Mic Night stage. Thank you so much. Let's give it up for her.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I'm always excited to speak to the crew. Y'all are always grateful with gracing me with good dialogue. And so I'm really excited to really just jump in. And so for those of you who maybe have not heard me speak before, my name is Dr. Sarah Mack. I am a licensed psychologist in Atlanta. And part of the reason that I'm so passionate in connecting with you guys is because I really have a heart for learning how to take psychology out of the 4 walls of therapy. And so this is one way that I'm able to do that, and thinking about how we can, broaden the conversation more so than, being in the 4 walls of therapy. So another passion that I have is change agents. As you see my shirt, I'm always talking about change agents. And actually, as you came in, there was a poll that asked you, since you know a little bit about myself, what type of change agent you are. The reason that I open with this is because I feel that we are all very, very much resources within our own communities, and we have the impact to make change with folks that are in our homes and at our workplace. And so each of us are actually change agents. And so there was a poll that you guys did just to kind of ask what type of change agents that you are. And mostly because if we are change agents, that means that we might be parents, caregivers, we may be mental health professionals. There were folks in healthcare, and many times we're actual caregivers for other people. We're also young adults. There may be young leaders as well as entrepreneurs on the call. And a lot of times when we are in these positions, we are blessed with the opportunity to provide care for other people. And we have to make sure that we are checking for whatever barriers that might impact us in the way that we're unable to give in the most efficient way. So today we want to talk about one barrier, which is stigma. And so, stigma is one of those words that we talk about all the time, but I have to stop and ask, like, do we really know what stigma means? What is stigma? And so I'm going to kind of talk you through today about what stigma is, how it affects us in different ways, and then also how we can live beyond it. So what we can do practically and making sure that we aren't getting stuck and kind of shut in a box, and limiting ourselves to the support that we need, and also opening that box up so that other folks can get support when it comes to mental health treatment and talking about mental health awareness. So just to talk a little bit about how I love dialogue. I like to talk about the things that most people don't talk about, or either, people want to talk about in therapy. And sometimes bringing that conversation out of therapy, it just makes us a healthier village. So I am going to be asking you guys some questions. I would love if you dialogue with me and making sure that you're using that chat room to interact with me. It just kind of helps me so that I feel like I'm not by myself over here. So feel free to use your chat. If you have questions, throw them in the chat, and later on we'll make sure that we open the dialogue so that we can take the mics off and really just talk through. So for the first few moments, I'm going to just talk for about 10 minutes. And that's hard for me, y'all, because I love to talk. And then I'm gonna, ask you guys to kind of just see what you think. So the poll asks what type of change agents are in the group. And I think I got a little bit of understanding. We got some psychologists, healthcare workers, mental health workers. We've got leaders. And thank you, brother and sister Montgomery, about change agent. Yes, one who transforms and incites change. So we are definitely on a roll today. So before we jump into the topic of stigma, I need for each of us to recognize that this is somewhat of a celebration to be together, to have this dialogue. For so long, a lot of us have not been able to openly talk about mental health concerns. In many of our families, we just didn't have those conversations. In some families, yes, maybe so, but I think now we're in an awesome point where social media is taking us by storm, and the younger generations are really adamant about certain things, and it's bringing about a conversation on live platforms outside of small circles, and kind of breaking open this topic about mental health awareness. So I would like for each of us to first take our Thursday off, because it is the end of the day. We are celebrating. And what that means is that I would like for you guys to take a deep breath with me. So you're going to take a deep breath in and hold it and release. We're going to do this 2 more times. In the next deep breath, I want you to focus on your forehead, your jawline, your neck, and your shoulders. So take a deep breath in, hold it, release the tension in your forehead, your jawline, your neck, and your shoulders as you exhale. So again, taking that deep breath in and holding, releasing the forehead, jawline, neck, and shoulders as you exhale. So we are celebrating, but we are also taking care of ourselves. We have had a full day, we've had a full week, and part of breaking the stigma of mental concerns is making sure that in every dialogue that we have, we check in, we say, how are you? You say, I'm fine. Well, we're gonna take a breath anyway, because we need it. So getting into dialogue about stigma, I think one of the things that I asked in the poll was the question about how many of you have maybe heard statements, stigma statements such as, oh, it's gonna be okay, just push through, you're exaggerating, oh, you're just being dramatic. I'm curious if any of you guys, maybe by a raise of hand, or even, I can't see the poll right now, but the results of the poll, but how many of you have experienced maybe minimization of something that you were going through by a friend, family member, or workplace? So I'm going to look at the results here. It looks like 80% of us have heard, you'll get through it, it'll be okay. 40%, you're being dramatic. It's not that bad. Y'all, that one is my pet peeve. 20%, I may lose my job position if they find out that I'm having stress or mental health issues. And then after I open up about my struggles, there's some type of distance or awkward silence after speaking about these things. So when we talk about stigma, well, if we can share this a little bit later, when we talk about stigma, it's definitely a marked disgrace that sets others apart from others once you open up about a characteristic that you are experiencing. So when you open up about, you know, maybe I'm stressed or maybe I'm anxious, there may be a minimalization about how that is actually impacting you from others in society, but you may also have an internalized stigma that says, I can't open up because it may show that I'm not as strong, or other people may perceive me as weak, or I may have some type of negative consequence, embarrassment, I may lose my job. Thinking about soldiers, if they are indicating that they're having significant mental health challenges, they may not be able to serve. You know, even thinking about, especially in healthcare and mental health professions, there may be a sense that if I am not seen as strong or able to be, you know, even healed, then my patients may judge me. There may be a shame. And these types of experiences are negative consequences of self-stigma, of me having my own stigma against what it means to have mental health challenges. And then there's also public stigma, the way other people may discriminate, devalue, minimize, or distance themselves based on a characteristic of having mental health concerns. You know, I think what's so interesting to me is that across the board, so many people have mental health concerns, whether it's stress, an abundance of stress, and it's overwhelming, that leads into some anxiety, depression. There are a lot of individuals who experience trauma, and even though they may not necessarily be deemed as PTSD, they may be having difficulties in relationships or in work relationships that may cause them some difficulty, that stigma may actually inhibit their ability to recover, restore, heal, and resolve some of those concerns. So stigma is a way of kind of keeping us from moving forward in our healing process. It is also something that may distance us once we open up about those things and limit our resources. So there's a lot of work to be done when it comes to stigma. I see that you have a hand up, and do you mind putting a little bit in the chat? And oh, you already have. And then also, if you would just hold your question for maybe 5 minutes. I'm going to try to get through it really quick, and we're going to open up for dialogue. So if you can make a note of your question in the chat, and then we'll go through those questions at the end. One of the things that we have to realize is that self-stigma can create a cycle of stigma that also leads to burnout for individuals who are change agents in the environment. So a lot of times when stress increases, studies find that those are the times when we are less likely to seek services if we have some internal stigma going on. But because we're having more stress, and that is the time where we need support, it actually increases you know, a little bit of burnout. It increases the ability for us to, you know, maybe not handle things as well. And then it goes back into that cycle of more self-stigma and internalizing the negative consequences that could happen, that fear, that shame, and fear of discrimination and stereotyping. In particular, overall, stigma impacts all individuals, but we definitely see in African-American communities that there are higher rates of mental health issues and mental illness. But we also see that African-Americans utilize mental health services at half the rate. So we're walking around with more stress, we're having more mental health concerns but we're accessing the supports in a lesser fashion than some of our other cultural counterparts. I think we also have to kind of understand as well that stigma is not only just something that happens in African American communities, in the Hispanic community, that in other racial and ethnic groups as well across the board, there are instances of stigma as well. And I think when it comes to the ethnic minorities, there already are stereotypes and prejudices that are impacting those particular groups, and to open up or to disclose could create even more vulnerabilities and further labeling that could open up to more marginalization and oppression. So we have to think about what are some of the barriers that's stopping people from getting help, and definitely being in a community that has experiences of higher mental health concerns, but then also has the cousin of stigma, which is cultural distrust. You know, we have to think about where did stigma come from? A lot of times in our communities, when we think about our generations before, there have been historically traumatizing instances that have happened in society that caused our families, our ancestors to not engage in services, not trust, police, or trust hospitals or doctors. And so we have to kind of challenge ourselves in this dialogue today, as if we are able to understand and discern which spaces are safe spaces for us to actually open up and get the supports that we need. So that kind of leads me into thinking about ways that we can kind of promote and live beyond stigma, and some things that we can do to kind of help with this problem. One thing that we talked about in reducing stigma is to become more familiar with mental illness. And in order to become more familiar with mental illness and mental health concerns, it's important to do just what Brother and Sis Montgomery did. Hearing her story, it allows us to put a face in a community, in a member who we know and love to be a person who we respect in our community, and understand what that challenge actually means for her. So becoming more familiar with how mental health concerns can impact our community is a step in reducing stigma. So one thing to consider is, who can you have a conversation with in a safe environment to learn about mental concerns? This is one way, we're talking about it now. But even within your communities, to have a heightened understanding of what mental health concerns, mental illness, depression, what anxiety looks like. Often in our communities, we see, like on TV shows, I love myself some Criminal Minds, but they are always throwing folks with psychosis under the bus, and they have these like very dramatic portrayals of folks with psychotic features. But what does that look like in real life? What does it really look like for someone who has substance abuse? It's not as glorified as they kind of show and depict on television. And I think having an opportunity to speak with someone, or hear a story, or understand a little bit more what that individual's life is like, actually increases compassion. It also helps lower perceived dangerousness. And so sometimes just not knowing, folks kind of fear what they don't know. And so by having those conversations, it also helps just kind of help folks to understand and not have as much fear related to mental illness. And then also having more familiarity helps to also reduce the desire to distance. If you have more understanding, you're exposing yourself, you understand it more, you kind of understand that you don't have to distance yourself as much from individuals who are having mental health concerns. Also, by becoming more familiar with mental health awareness, mental health treatment, it also helps you to have pro-social attitudes to be able to speak to someone who may be having a challenge with anxiety or depression or post-traumatic stress, substance abuse, or psychosis. think about it. Sometimes there may be individuals that come into your life and they may open up about what they're going through. And just kind of think about what you might actually tell them. If you yourself are perpetuating some of those questions that we asked before, oh, it'll be okay. Oh, just pray about it. Now, I love prayer, and prayer is powerful. So let me just say that right there. But there may be other aspects that we have to do in addition to prayer and having social connection for a particular reason. You know, for some folks who may have more of a significant concern, how often do we really listen and say, you know, I think therapy could be an option, or, you know, how are you doing with your self-care, versus it'll be okay, girl, just push through it. I'm gonna be praying for you. How can you start making comments that actually make mental health awareness more practical? What are some things that you can say, such as, you know, I had a cousin who went through the same thing. You're not alone. And I know some folks who, you know, were helpful with my cousin. I can give you some resources. What are ways that you can actually know about the resources so that someone who comes into the community can actually get those from you? And so these are ways that we can, again, become more familiar and also help our communities become more familiar with mental health resources and just understanding what mental health treatment is all about. So the last thing that I want to say is that, you know, a lot of us are providers, healthcare providers, mental health providers, leaders in our community. And it's sometimes thought that it's the general population who has this concern with stigma. But studies also show that we as mental health providers also struggle with stigma, self-stigma. We endorse negative attitudes towards actually seeking help, even though we are providing help. So this study talked about mental health professionals, school counselors, psychiatrists, nurses, and primary caregivers. We're on the front lines. And so it's really important that as we're holding the community, as we're offering support, that we're able to get to a place where we can release, so that our cup can now be, you know, a little bit more available for the folks that we're caring for. And so what I would like to do in the last question in the poll is to, if we can share it one more time and just ask some of the ideas that you were open to as far as what can we do in creating a safe space. Can you share that one time, the poll one more time?
Yes, it should be viewable now. Can y'all see that? Mine says attendee.
Okay, I can see it now. So the number 3 was, how can you live beyond stigma? And a lot of you guys talked about creating a safe space, a program, a forum, a small group to open up about concerns. This dialogue goes 2 ways. You know, we're having a safe space to talk about this right now, but sometimes we also need to create safe spaces for other people to come and talk about. And sometimes it's okay for us to talk about our concerns as well. So making sure we have both of those spaces available. Many of you talked about have resources available for mental health and wellness options. That was at 30%. And there was a tie on creating options for coping in the community. And then also the one that I really like and I really would love to promote is partnering up with a local mental health practice or agency or program. Because a lot of times we want to get outside the 4 walls of therapy, and we need another organization or another leader who's already in the community to just kind of talk to them and talk to their kids or talk to their group, and be able to bring therapy outside of the walls. Because a lot of times with stigma, folks may feel intimidated by coming to speak with someone in an office or in a hospital. So these are some things that, again, I just wanted to speak really quickly as far as, you know, what stigma is, how it affects us, and how we can live beyond it. But what's most important is that we're dialoguing. So this part I feel like is the more important part of our conversation, because I do think that by speaking is healing. You know, a lot of times we go through things, and this is not a therapy session, just to kind of, you know, put that disclaimer out there. But a lot of times when we share our stories, and we recognize a part of ourselves in someone else, it frees us to be able to let some of those things go, resolve some of those concerns, figure out that there are questions that we had about situations that happened a long time ago that we just never got the answers to. And now that we're older, we're able to process those things. So again, I'm hoping to open up the dialogue just for questions, things that you heard that kind of, you know, that you have more questions or thoughts about. And again, for us to just openly dialogue and talk more about stigma and how we can better take care and live beyond the stigma. So I know, is it Sis Montgomery? Is that your account? You had your hand up a little earlier.
Yes. I guess I can just read what I shared in the chat. I just kind of put a little bit of my bio there. It says, I am disabled. I have had a lifelong struggle with major depression disorder, anxiety, paranoia. I have a family history of mental illness. I have 2 uncles and 1 aunt that followed through with suicidal ideation. I began to believe in antidepressant medications when the illness began to degenerate. I was actually in college. Didn't know what was going on, but you know, things just began to happen that I didn't understand. And so I sought out counseling, but it still took me about 6 years to try antidepressant medications. And if it wasn't for those medications, you know, I wouldn't have made it, you know, because just the anxiety. I am a Christian. Is this a Christian platform? Is that right? Okay. Some platforms you can't talk about church or God or anything.
Yes.
But I believe in God. I do believe in God, but I also have come to believe and understand that all things work together for good. So, you know, I can't help the genes that I was born with. I can't help my family history and things like that. And so I have to accept that there are a lot of family members that did not, they still to this day, like even some of my closest family members, they don't believe it because I was supposed to be a superstar and I was 140 pounds in high school and I was a beauty queen and won Miss Ridge and was in all kind of activities. I was a straight A student, you know, very gifted and all that. But sometimes even with people that are multi-talented, they have found that sometimes there is a correlation between multi-talented people and mental illness, you know. And so, you know, it's just things that we can open up and talk about because they are realities. And I mentioned in one of them, in my second statement, I put it's okay to be honest. Sometimes when we share, it encourages others to open up and be vulnerable too. I put a little prejudice in there. I said we are in a superpower society, and the reason why I say superpower society because everybody expects so much, you know, on jobs. They don't care that you have another life. You know, I've noticed that, you know, I have seen parents go to work from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. You have no time with your children. If you say I want to go worship on Sunday, you know, you almost are put into a minority category. So those are some of the superpower expectations that we have. But the reality is we're human and we're not super powerful. And so sometimes it's appropriate to say I can't. But in our society, that's really inappropriate. You know, you'll hear people say, don't say what you can't do, but sometimes you can't. And especially people that suffer from mental illnesses, they need to understand that there are limits and that they need to accept that they have, you know, some extra challenges, you know.
So it's a couple of things that you said that I want to piggyback on. One is that In our community, sometimes we have a disagreement or just some stigma about medication. And, you know, again, because there's sometimes so much confusion about it. And I really appreciate you mentioning that, because there are often times when, you know, we as individuals may say, hey, try this natural thing, or try this, or, you know, try more wellness oriented things. But in some cases, medication is definitely the blessing for individuals. And I think just hearing that is something, when someone says, yeah, I've been taking an antidepressant for a little while, that the reaction isn't what, or I can't believe that, but it's that, yes, in some cases, it is very important for folks to be able to receive that support. And that's the way we break down stigma. I think also one thing that you mentioned too is that our understanding and belief of like how religion plays into stigma. And so a lot of times when groups are unable to go to, you know, the doctor, or there's that cultural distrust, a lot of times we learn to lean on our religious background and lean on each other and the community to try to push through and muscle through certain things. And so we have a cultural pattern of really being able to lean on that as support, and it can be a support. But then again, we have to also be open and understanding that there are also other options as well. Right now, I feel like it's a blessing to be in our communities as African-American individuals, because we're learning that we have more options, and we're opening and engaging and exposing ourselves to different types of options. And I think promoting the idea that I can still hold my value of what church and religion and spirituality means to me, and take medication, and go to therapy, and talk about all of my concerns, and do everything that I need to do. So, you know, I think we have to make it a more inclusive conversation that, yes, God is good, and he created doctors who made medication for me. And, you know, I'm able to go to this. I had to go to a hospitalization unit, and thank God that I had that for that particular point in my life. And now I can kind of function at a different point because I got the support that I needed at that point. The last point that you made that I think is really important is the superpower dynamic of, you know, being a strong Black woman, being a strong Black man, having to work, you know, what do we say? Having to work twice as hard to get, you know, halfway, and having to really overwork in order to get half of the things that, you know, just typically folks would naturally get. And so that definitely creates a pace in which we are just moving very quickly, trying to attain, you know, what we are doing in life. And that increases that stress. And what we talked about with increased stress, that's the time to seek support. But if we're dealing with that stigma, that may be the time when we don't seek the support, and then that cycle begins to happen towards burnout. So I think you said a lot of great things. I'm curious for you guys on, you know, conversations that you have had, because I really feel like we're in a potential period of time in our history where we're starting to shift. So I'm curious about times where you guys have seen where the stigma was broken, where someone may have opened up about, you know, something that happened in their lives, did receive the support from the community, what that looked like, and what models that can kind of help us to give us ideas of how we can also live in the community and break the stigma as well. I'm curious if anybody has any thoughts on that.
I do. Hold on one second.
Hey, Kendall.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
So I think this is gonna carry from like my personal experience, but like I know when I was younger, we didn't really look at mental health like that until my grandmother had Alzheimer's. So that was kind of like the first spark of like, okay, this is real. So I had never seen that before. And so I think that was a big transition for us, trying to understand what that does for a family, the strain of just having to take care of someone who's not able to fully take care of themselves. And then I was more open to understanding that that's just something that, our job is just to keep them safe and healthy. And then later down the line, I got diagnosed with ADHD my freshman year of college. And my mom and we talked about it, and it was actually funny because I honestly noticed it firsthand. And then we started to notice like things when I started college, because that was just another stepping stone. And we started to see that those things were starting to carry. Now, I was always an A+ student, pretty much did good grades. I was in basketball and I was in a lot of like out of extracurricular activities. And so it definitely didn't at first start off as very supportive. The only one who really supported me was my mother, because my mom is actually a counselor herself. She's a vocational counselor. But I didn't see a lot of support from my general family, and they also didn't really know. So and it didn't actually start to shift until I started nursing school. So I'm actually just getting ready to finish out. And I was in my first semester and I had failed. And with our school, we're not able to come back right away after failing a class or a semester. So and then at the same time, my parents had also just moved to a new state, which is in Hawaii. But basically, it was just a huge shift. I was taking medications and really wasn't sure how this all was supposed to work. I was also in counseling. And so the support was really just not fully there. And it had shifted because my family was no longer close knit to me. It was now they're far away. And so I had to lean on my grandparents, and they didn't really truly understand my disorder as well. And so it was definitely a huge shift in that. So the more when I failed, they actually started to see, okay, now we have to really kind of change how we approach the situation. What can we do to help? How can we help? And even a few family members have helped me through from the very beginning to the end to help me get to where I am now. And yeah, it's taken me longer to finish nursing school, but the support has definitely increased after the fact. And now, actually, I found out that recently my dad was recently diagnosed as well for ADHD. So the support has definitely changed over the years. But I know, like, for me getting started, my mom really saw that and actually kind of initiated that and wanted to make sure I had support, but it wasn't always there. So but it definitely opened up.
You bring up a really good point about kind of like our generational trajectory, because a lot of times, like our parents, I'm 35, so our parents may not have gotten support, diagnosis, treatment, and we would say things like, her nerves bad, she's having a moment, she's just going through one of her cycles, she's just going through her. But now it's like those parents, us as parents, are taking our kids to understand, oh, this actually has a name. This actually is, anxiety, or this is bipolar disorder. Oh, maybe I have something like that because it looks similar to what my sister has. And I think what you were saying was sometimes the child has the opportunity to get the diagnosis, and then the parents start reflecting and saying, oh, well, maybe there's more to this story, and that's something that I've been dealing with all of this time as well. So I think even us having proper understanding of when we see depression, that's not somebody who's just depressed and sad. Like, I think you're actually going through a depressive cycle of time, and in order for you to know to support that person, you have to kind of understand what it actually is. And so what you were saying was you were actually, and even Sister Montgomery, you guys were educating us a little bit on, like, this is kind of some of the labels. These are some of the diagnoses, and labels is not an appropriate term, but these are some of the diagnoses that these things can look like. and, you know, allow individuals to know that they have more options as far as supports versus just pushing through those concerns. You said another thing that I think is really important, going back to the superpower, is that in our communities, a lot of times we focus on education, academic achievement, attaining privilege, because we want our next generation to, of course, you know, stand on our shoulders, be the best that they can be. We try to be the best that we can be. But sometimes that focus is on like gold for the gold, but we might not also promote emotional health. How do I go for the goal and be safe and healthy at the same time? How do I, you know, take all AP classes and still keep my emotional health in check? Am I having conversations with my daughter about, okay, you got an AP class test tomorrow, so let's go to the park, take a breath, unwind your mind so that you're clear. Have we eaten appropriate dinner? How you feeling on your anxiety? You're gonna do great with your test, go ahead and study. Or am I just saying, hey, I'm expecting the A. If you want this, then you need to make sure these grades are in place. Are we teaching them how to go for the goal and be safe? And I think that's a shift that we also have to make, in making sure that we're not only promoting, we have to continue to promote excellence. You know, that's definitely, you know, a good part about who we are as individuals. But also the other side of it is, how do you maintain your health while you're actually doing those things? And how can I support you on your journey as you're maintaining excellence? Any other thoughts while we're talking about those things?
Yes, I have something on that. A real good dialogue. I just wanted to add something real quickly. The stigmas, right? The stigma surrounding mental health, societal disapproval. It's a moment of transparency. I've experienced this is similar stigmas that Kendall mentioned, since Montgomery, and I think all y'all could attest to this. And I'm speaking to crew and everybody watch, but mainly the crew, because we're young, we're still figuring out life. And Kendall mentioned childhood. I too have felt that during my childhood, that family business stays in the home, don't go spreading business to strangers, you know, because it seems like you're just airing out business. As a Black man, because I can speak on behalf of us, we are underrepresented and underserved in counseling. Now, although I'm a man of faith, I also see a counselor now. And it's okay, it's always okay to believe in Jesus and believe in the chair. I said that before, and I'll keep saying that. It's okay to have both on your side. Because as leaders, as students, as many roles that you carry, such as being a daughter, being a son, being a dad, being a mom, those are roles that you have to serve those people. And I don't know about you, but I'm not always 100% living on the hill every day. It's tough. Just as, you know, mental health professional, Dr. Max on the call, everybody on here has a role. And this is the space that we get to have, to share. This is a moment of intimacy, of conversation. And it doesn't mean that you're less than, that you do see a counselor, that you have some struggles with some form of mental health. And so I think, you know, tonight is timely. I think those are some stigmas that are continuing to be presented, but I think that stuff needs to be eradicated, and we can't be stagnant in legacy. We can create change by changing our thoughts and our definitions of what mental health, what counseling means to me, what it means to you as well. So I just want to throw that in there as a reminder of living a life beyond the stigma.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point, that living the life beyond the stigma doesn't mean we don't have problems or we don't have concerns. It's being vulnerable enough to be aware of the concerns that we're having and seeking support. So that we're supporting ourselves through the journey and we're not just muscling through. There is such health complications. Think about life expectancy when we're carrying so much stress. And honestly, we've been conditioned to know how to do that, how to carry the stress, do the work, and keep going and add extra things on without shedding some of the traumatic experiences that come along with those things. And so living beyond the stigma definitely means that we're continuing to move, but we're in a more efficient way. We can go the distance. And, you know, as far as impacting other people, we can show that we're human as well. And that's something that they can really relate to. And then they can then be inspired to continue to, again, promote legacy in our next generations. One thing that I think is really important to note in this discussion is this is more general. We are talking more about stigma, but at any point that we do want to talk specifically, like, what do these diagnoses mean? What does that really look like in our community? I think that is a helpful talk too. So, you know, listening for those opportunities to get that additional information can also be helpful, because Sister Montgomery did a great job of just talking about the difference between depression and clinical depression. I mentioned about cycles and what someone is, oh, she's just going through her fit. She just, you know, I don't know when she's gonna come back. But what does that really look like when it comes to bipolar disorder? Like literally, what does it look like? Because a lot of times we use these phrases like, oh, I'm bipolar, I'm depressed, but we really have to be aware of that's somebody's actual life that we're talking about. And so being aware of the way that we speak. And I know sometimes, like, you know, our culture, we always are making jokes about everything. But sometimes that in itself perpetuates stigma, because it's like, no, we really need to be serious about this, because this is this person's life. This is your mom's life. It could be yours if we don't start, you know, dealing with some of these things. And so I think one of the things in the research that said is a lot of times stigma stops us from going to seek support when we have just minimal difficulty, moderate difficulty. And then when it gets to be very severe, we're like, I don't know what to do, because we haven't been practicing all along what our coping strategies could be. And we're talking a lot about treatment and therapy and medication, but again, having a full dialogue about mental wellness and having a full package, so I have options, different things that I can do to also make sure that I'm taking care of myself. So Sister Montgomery is on a roll. So I really would love to come back and talk about trauma. I would love to talk about like the specifics. Traumatic stress is so widespread in our communities. And a lot of times we are holding trauma and moving through life with this heightened sense of stress, and it feels normal. So it's almost like until we start labeling and understanding this behavior is actually traumatic stress, we're just thinking like, oh, this is just what everybody does, which is another component of stigma as well. So as much as we can continue to have these conversations, clarify what things mean, and then promote health, I think we're moving in the right direction. So if you guys had an opportunity to live beyond the stigma, have a conversation, and this might not necessarily be, maybe one person can answer or you know, just think about what is a conversation that I can have with a particular person, maybe in my family or in my community. Or if that person comes to me and says something because they've already said something to me, what would my reaction be? What do I want to say to them? Start thinking through what you would actually say. And I hope that we can do this in the next 5 minutes or so. And really thinking through, when that person comes to speak to me, or when I want to reach out to that person, how can I respond to them in a way that allows them to have openness to be vulnerable, to say what they want to say, whether they want to open up or not. And what can I say to kind of promote their health versus perpetuate stigma? So that's the last question I just want to kind of close out with. What is something that you would actually say, the words? And for those of you who will remain on mute, I ask that you write it down and that you actually say it out loud. Of what you would say if a person came to you about a mental health concern, Or if you're choosing to go to a person about a mental health concern, what would your reaction be? What would you actually say? What are the words that will come out of your mouth to reduce stigma and to promote health? Just let y'all think about it for a little bit.
Dr. Mack,
Mm-hmm.
just quickly, I would say I have talked to people that have been discouraged or they just felt like giving up. And one thing that I've learned is to not say a lot. Just let them know that you're listening, because it's just like with me, Dr. Mack, if I'm talking to you one-on-one, a lot of times just the fact that I'm able to open up and share, I can actually start putting pieces together just by talking and someone listening to me and, empathizing, and sometimes it's just good when those answers come from within rather than a person giving advice. Sometimes I can be immediately ready to give advice, but a lot of times people that are struggling and have a lot of confusion, they have enough voices. So many times they just need someone to empathize and say, I understand, so sometimes less is more with a person that's really struggling.
I think just with those small words, I understand. That promotes health, that promotes connection. That's something to say, because I think realistically, a lot of us are more, like that empathetic listening is a skill that we learned as therapists. People typically don't listen, So understanding that, just what she mentioned about being able to say less is more, and those words that I understand, and really just kind of holding that space, as we talked about holding space to allow that person to be seen, understood, and I see you. Stan said to let them know I am here to support you. I am here, presence, just like Sister Montgomery said, sometimes we don't have the answers. And for me to try to come up with an answer on the fly, I don't know. But being able to just say, you know what, I'm here. I don't have the answers, but I'm here is so supportive, to where that person leaves that conversation and they're not feeling that distance and that awkwardness that we talked about before. Because a lot of times stigma perpetuates when you open up and it's not a safe environment. So I open up and I don't know what to say. And I'm like, well, good luck, and it's like, how about I'm here for you if you want to talk again. And even just really making sure that we have some words in the back of our head as to what we would say. Anyone else have any thoughts?
Bill, did you have something? I saw you come off mute. No, I'm putting you on the spot.
So this is like my thing, because I'm not really good about like using my words, and it's terrible because I'm supposed to be a nurse. We're supposed to think, how can we therapeutically communicate to our patients? And I only say this because this recently happened where someone came to me and I was lost for words. Like I had nothing really that I could say that would, she was asking questions and I'm like, I have nothing to say, but other than that I'm here to support you. And I can't just go and see her. I have to, we live very far away. And for me, I was just like, I'm here to support you. But again, if you need to talk about something, if you need to set up a plan, what can we do to help you get to this point? That was my goal for her. And just so that if she needed to come back to it, we can. But it's just, where is the line of where, you said less is more, but how do we keep our opinions out of it? That's where I'm kind of having a hard time with, because we're human.
That's a great question. And that's the reason why I asked everybody to think of a statement, because we are human. And a lot of times when we feel uncomfortable and when someone's sharing, sometimes we'll share, or we'll try to encourage, and, we'll just try because we love the person that we're speaking to. One thing that I see that's often helpful is not to assume, because you're not in that person's footsteps. So you don't really know what direction they should actually go in. So the question that you ask is, what do you need from me? In that moment, she might have needed to vent. In that moment, she may have needed you to talk to her mom about, or help her figure out what to say to her mom. Or in that point, she may have needed, you to hold her accountable. But sometimes when we give the instruction, it's coming from our viewpoint of someone who is not dealing with the same issue that they are. So asking the question and making sure that we're not assuming is often the best solution. So I'm here for you. I'm listening to you. And then what do you need from me in this moment? Like, what could be most helpful for me? And allowing that person to guide you into what could be most helpful. Sometimes there are moments when, again, someone may be in a mental health crisis. And again, when it comes to the emotions, it's very hard for a person who may be emotional to think cognitively, ABC, this is what I need you to do. And so being present with them and saying, I'm going to check on you tomorrow morning. Letting them know that, we're not just having one conversation. I'm going to check in. And sometimes even in our own mind, we might come up with a solution of what we think is helpful. And saying, hey, this is what I think I might do. Does that sound okay to you? So that person has a bit of empowerment in saying, this is what's going to be helpful for me, or this is not what's going to be helpful for me. We do have to realize that in points of stress and concern, it can be very confusing. And so I think really that empathetic listening, periodically checking on them, letting them know that I support you, but actually doing the supporting, actually calling back and checking back, grabbing a team of people that they trust and saying, hey, I'm going to check in the morning. Can you check on it tomorrow night? So that you're not going through it by yourself. And that, again, you have to, again, make sure these are safe conversations. So I think the last thing I want to leave you guys with is discerning between what's safe and, what's not. Some folks are not equipped, no matter how much we want them to be, to promote health, because they themselves may be having some internalized stigma. So I'll give you an example. I have a lot of friends because I talk a lot. So I have to sometimes, like, I tell you this, and so I must have messed up and told the friend who, doesn't have, some folks just don't have that capacity to hold. They may be able to hold you like this. And so I can give her just a bit, but that day I had to release. And so I released this much. And her response was a minimizing kind of response, kind of blowing it off. And even though that hurt, like, I was like, wait a minute, I forgot, I can't tell you. But at the same time, it reminded me that I need to also know who my safe folks are when it comes to a time when I have to release. And also for you to know if you are a safe person for someone else and what your boundary is, because there may be times when you have to say, I know you're going through, like right now, I need my space to do what I need to do. I'm gonna check back in with you next week, but right now I just need some downtime. So it's a lot of awareness of not only that person, but yourself as well, who you can have discernment with to say, this is a safe conversation. This is a safe person that I can speak to. But y'all, I promise, I think about my friends so much because I'm not trying to wear everybody out. I mean, if I only talk to one friend, because just as Sister Montgomery said, sometimes it's about the verbal processing. Sometimes it's just about talking it out of your head. And so for me, who's a verbal processor, it could get to be a lot if I'm talking to one person. So, even consider that as well. Carlotta, I hope, were you the person that you expressed and the person kind of shut you down, or were you the friend that the overload happened to?
I was talking with my parents actually, and they just shut it down. So like I was going through some things in college, and it was my freshman year going into my sophomore year. I realized that I was depressed. I had some anxiety going on. And so they were just telling me like, oh, nothing is wrong with you. You don't have any kids. You don't have a man. You're not married at this young age. Nothing is wrong with you. So yeah, they just shut me out. And I was like, are you guys serious? They was like, yeah, shut up, basically. So I just learned then, like, I cannot go to my parents every time I try to have a talk with them and try to get them to understand things from a different perspective. They just do not understand. So I know that I can't go to them.
And as a change agent, as all of you are, sometimes you have to create that support for yourself. Thomas, you guys at City View, y'all have created this support. Sometimes we can't speak to those folks who come before us because they maybe have not ever dealt with some of those same concerns. So if I say your concern is real, then that means my concern is real, and I'm not ready to work on that just yet. So I think a lot of times we do get pushed back because of that internalized stigma. And that's where some of that public stigma of us getting some distance. But making sure you do have options, a whole set of ways that you can cope and move forward so that you can live beyond the stigma. So I really appreciate you guys. I know it's 9:13 on our side, 8:13 on you guys' side. But I don't want to, if you guys had some things to follow up with, I wanted to just toss it back over to you, Thomas.
Yeah, awesome. Let's give Dr. Mack another round of applause, a virtual hand clap, whatever you like to do. Dr. Mack, thank you so much. You really got them going in the comments as well as on Facebook, Facebook Live. Thank you so much for being so attentive and sitting with us throughout the night. And so this is really supposed to be an hour and a half at the most, but this is really good. And the conversation needed to be held tonight. So thank you so much, Dr. Mack, for your time and pouring into the lives of people. So Dr. Mack, if you don't mind, would you please share your contact with the folks on this call if they would like to chat with you more about your talk tonight or maybe seek support through you?
Absolutely. I love having these types of dialogues. I call them difficult discussions, and I'm always ready to talk to somebody. Like I said, I love to talk, and I feel like it's really important for us to bring therapeutic conversation outside of the four walls. So you guys can follow me on Instagram at Dr._Sarah Mac, and that's Sarah with H. And also, if you know of a college student who just graduated in May, we will be opening up our Change Agent Mentors program for this second cohort. And so feel free to share that information with individuals. The link is in my bio regarding the website, www.drsarahmac.com, and they can apply through the website.
Absolutely. Yes, so please, let's continue to be prayerful for Dr. Mack and all that she's doing in the community so that we can change lives, we can live a life beyond the stigma, because again, it starts with us as young adults. We have young minds, innovative minds, so let's not, again, stay stagnant in legacy. Let's continue to stay prayed up, stay equipped, and stay diligent in this week as we move forward and finish this week out. So Dr. Mack has put her information in the chat as well. And so crew, you have it. Our guests, you have it there. Also to our new guests, we thank you so much on behalf of the crew for spending your Thursday with us. You've had many options tonight, and so thankful that you scrolled and logged on in and tuned in with us tonight as we simply grow our community one mind at a time. So again, this is the Crew Young Adult Ministry Open Mic Night, where we provide just simply real world education. And so please check us out on Facebook. Please don't tag out just yet. We have some announcements by Sam that's going to be delivered here shortly that I believe will be a huge benefit to everybody on this call and beyond. So Thank you so much for the guests that came on to support Dr. Mack. Thank you again. Dr. Mack is like family to us, so she's one of the gurus that I love to have. She's one of the best and brightest in the psychology arena. So let's continue to pray for her and pray for each other. Pray for each other. Let's encourage one another this week. Amen. So at this time, I love to do this each time we meet. Dr. Mack and who knows what time it is. I like to open the floor and allow you to share your biggest takeaway from tonight. It could be from the quote that you've heard, maybe something you discovered within your own voice that you're going to carry out in your everyday lives this week. So one or two. I see your question, Brother Sister Montgomery. Yes, we will continue in June. We'll continue in June. If you stay tuned for our announcement, you'll learn ways to connect with us and get that information. Upcoming evening, congregation. Awesome. So at this time, crew, you know what time it is. If you can please unmute yourself and share your biggest takeaway from tonight so that you can be, a change agent, a leader in your own homes and the community. So the floor is yours.
Okay. My biggest takeaway from this discussion was like to basically be like less is more, basically. And then also that therapy is not a bad thing and that mental health is real and that we should be more open and more vulnerable to that and understand and educate those around us that it is okay. There's nothing bad about it. And even reaching out and having people be like, hey, if there's a situation where maybe they need to, we offer that for them. So.
Thank you so much, Kendall. Yes, we all need to seek the help that we're all in dire need of. Because none of us are righteous, no, not one. Thank you so much for being vulnerable. Anyone else? The comments, Carlotta says, empathizing, listening, with exclamation mark. She meant that. She felt all of that. I'm assuming that's something she's going to work on this week, Carlotta. Love it. Okay. Sure I don't miss anybody. Awesome. Thank you so much, crew and guests. Give yourself a round of applause, a pat on the back for being open and vulnerable in this space tonight. You've been such a good audience. I love y'all very much. Y'all are doing a great job in keeping this platform going and spreading this information. Hey, Mike, I see you coming off of mute. Did you have something you wanted to expound on? Share your takeaway. Okay, if not, well, this concludes our Life Beyond Stigma. Let's give another round of applause and celebrate Dr. Mack again for her time. It's way past some people's bedtime over there on that side. And so thank you again, Dr. Mack.
Absolutely.
For being a part.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're gonna go ahead and open up the floor to one of the crew members, Sam. She's reading our announcements for tonight. And so we have some very exciting things happening here in the crew, as well as in the community. So Sam, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. And once again, thank you, Dr. Mack, for delivering a powerful, life-changing message. To all of our visitors, we are so glad you decided to join us, and we do not take it for granted. All first-time guests 18 through 40, please fill out the Crew Connect form located in the Zoom chat. We would love to get to know you and include you in our updates. Have you filled out your crew membership form? In order to track your membership, please fill out the crew membership form in the Zoom chat. Cedar Hill PD Neighborhood Walk is this Saturday from 10:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. Contact Thomas for more details. Participants are limited. Next week, we welcome another special guest to the Life Beyond Stigma event. This event is open for the entire family, so invite a guest. Flyers are now available. And that concludes my announcements.
Thank you so much, Sam, for reading that. I'm going to put my email address in the chat. So if folks want to contact me regarding our information, as well as the membership form, as well as our Crew Connect form, if you're a young adult under the age of 40, between 18 and 40 demographic. This is good contact for us to track and keep in touch with you and help you stay connected with this platform. So let's continue to praise God and thank Him for providing us this virtual dimension because that's what we have to reach. So there it is. So contact me, contact us if you have any more questions about the crew. Feel free to reach out to us. So without any further ado, how are we feeling? Pretty good.
We're feeling good. I'm feeling great.
Feeling great? Okay.
I also want to let our guests know that the Zoom code will still be the same every meeting. So if you have the code for today or a link, it will always be the same. And that we do that so that it's just easier for people to get in.
Yes, yes, yes. Also, we're on all social media platforms. Facebook is facebook.com/CDView Crew Ministry. The Crew Young Adult Ministry is the profile name. We're on Instagram at CDView Crew, as well as Twitter at CDView Crew. Don't forget, t-shirts are available. I have them on right now with the tag on the back. You'll see them real live. See. So all you need to do, if you'd like to purchase one, contact me, email me, and I'll get it shipped your way. Because the big deal, we need to promote us and promote one of the best, okay? One of the best young adult groups in DFW. So please get your shirt. All you need to tell them is look at the back and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. That's the best way they connect with us. All the information is on there. So be patient with us. We're in the process of rebranding and revamping some things. So I will get t-shirts to you in a timely fashion as best as I can. So God bless you all. Y'all are doing great. Keep up the good work and crew. And if I don't hear from you this week, I will see you back next Thursday for our final installment of the Life Beyond Stigma featuring Dr. Cleavon Matthews from Dayton, Ohio. So God bless you all, guests, crew. Be safe, get some good rest tonight, and have a good rest of your week. Have a good one.